Welcome to my podcast story, the show where podcasters share the real journey behind their voices, from their first mic check to their biggest milestones. Every episode reveals the lessons, challenges, and breakthrough that shape a podcast star's journey. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I can't wait for you to hear today's story. Tell us your name and what you do.
My name is Scott Miller, and I host the Lost Sci Fi Podcast, a vintage science fiction short stories podcast, which is thankfully been number one in 33 countries around the world.
Wow. How long have you been doing this?
I'm sorry?
How long have you been doing this?
I started the podcast almost 4 years ago. And it's a great question. I'm glad you asked, because Wisdom, here's the thing that a lot of people don't know about podcasting. It's a long game.
Yeah.
Podcasting is not something where you have a tremendous amount of success right out of the gate as soon as you start. And a lot of people are thinking that's what they're going to have. And it's just not something that happens. It takes a while for your audience to find you, unless you're a celebrity. That's a different story, but I'm not a celebrity. So it took a while to gain traction. And that's something podcasters just don't, or most podcasters don't talk about, I don't think. In science fiction in the United States, I've only gotten up to number 8. So I haven't cracked the top 5 yet.
Yeah.
The four top podcasts almost every day in the United States were started in like 2009, 10, 11, and 12. Okay, so they've been around a long time, and that helps them. So that's what a lot of people don't know. And if you think about it, it makes sense. And here's why it makes sense. If you start a science fiction podcast tomorrow, and a month from now, let's say you have 5 episodes, when somebody discovers you, the most they can listen to, 5 episodes.
Yeah.
But when somebody discovers my podcast, they have 465 episodes to listen to. So that means I have an advantage. Now, it wasn't an advantage almost 4 years ago when I started this.
Yeah.
But it's an advantage now, and that's something podcasters need to know. Doesn't happen as soon as you want it to happen. Success, I mean.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, why this choice of podcast?
Why? Well, a great question. I was narrating audiobooks. This blue thing behind me is one side of my audio booth where I record now all I record are vintage science fiction audiobooks. So I started doing that, and I was selling the audiobooks all over the world. They're in libraries all over the world for free. And then a few months later, somebody said, why don't you start a podcast with those stories that you've got? Because I had all of them already done, the stories. And I thought, well, that makes sense. So I did a little research, went on a Facebook group for narrators, audiobook narrators, and saw somebody say he does really well with his podcast. Again, he's been around for years. So there were other audiobook narrators going, you give away for free what you do that you would normally sell all over the world? Why would you do that? And he said, well, it just makes sense if you think about it. Now, so I am a Wisdom. There are a lot of people in the world who are ready. Aim people, and they never fire. Okay? A lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people like that in this world. I am a ready, fire, aim kind of guy. Okay? So there's a difference. The people who have success in life are the ready, fire people, whether they fire immediately or takes them a little while. But a lot of people don't have success in life because they just aim all the time and they never pull the trigger. So I jumped into this thing not knowing a lot of stuff. I did not know a lot of things, but I knew this. I was going to start, and I started the podcast when I was 62, almost 63. So I'm almost 67 now. I started the podcast, and what I did was I said to myself, I will never stop. Never. Well, I will stop when I'm dead, or if health doesn't allow me to do what I do. Otherwise, I'm doing this forever. There are a lot of reasons why. I hope I'm 80 years old in that booth recording audiobooks and recording this podcast. And one of the reasons why, Wisdom, is I've seen people who retired and deteriorated rapidly because they lost their sense of purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose my sense of purpose. I'm not going to lose the passion that I have. When I walk in that booth to record an audiobook and then the podcast, I give it everything I've got. I do the absolute best I can do with every single episode, and I'm going to do it forever. So the way I look at it, these audiobooks and this podcast will exist 10 years after I'm gone, 20 years after I'm gone, and somebody, whether it be my wife or somebody else, is going to reap the financial rewards for what I've created.
Yeah.
So every podcast to me matters because it's going to be around for decades after I'm gone. So I love doing this. I love, I thank you for this opportunity to be with you today.
Yeah.
I want to share with as many people as I can what this has done for me and how they can become successful. And it truly is a thrill for me to be with you today and to talk about this.
A lot of persons, this the kind of podcast you do, audio fiction, is not I won't say not common. Like majority of podcasts is interview and solo episodes. Can you give us
Sure.
a behind the scenes of what it takes to make an episode for an audio fiction podcast?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyway. The actual podcast takes very little effort, but narrating the story that goes in the podcast takes a lot of work. I am doing a story right now. It's called The Tunnel Under the World. Fascinating story. I've recorded about 20 minutes of it. It's an hour and 10 or 20 minutes probably long story. So just to record that story will take 3 to 4 hours of my life to record the story. Then again, it's going to be around forever, so I'm very particular. I do everything I can. We all breathe, and I get that, but I don't like the sound of the breaths during narration.
Yeah.
So I reduce those or eliminate those. I do a little audio cleanup. There's also something that I'd never heard of before until I started narrating audiobooks, mouth clicks and mouth noise that I find distracting. And so I eliminate all of those to the best of my ability. So the process of recording this one, the next episode, will take 3 to 4 hours to record. I can't record nonstop. I take breaks and all of that. Then it will take another 3 to 6 hours to edit that story. Then I've got to create the art, the audiobook cover. So all in all, this next episode will take me 10 to 12 hours. Now, to sit down at the computer and write the intro, because it's a short introduction, usually 1 minute to 2 minutes long at the beginning. I tell people who the artist is, who the author in this case is. I tell them a little bit about the story, not too much, but a little bit of a tease. And then I record the final 15 or 20 seconds, which is the tease for the next story that I'm going to do. So going in the booth and recording that takes me 5 minutes, maybe 7 or 8 minutes. Editing that takes another 10 to 15 minutes. So the actual podcast episode is the easy part. It's the recording, the audiobook the story that goes in the podcast episode that can take a lot of time. Now, sometimes, like probably Sunday or Monday, I'll release another episode. And that will be a story that's only about 30 minutes long. So that'll take an hour or so to record, another hour or two to edit. So that'll be a shorter one. So it depends on the length of the story. But I love telling these stories that are all in the public domain, all before 1963 or 64, and some as far back as the 17 or 1800s.
Wow. Wow. For a podcast like yours, audio fiction, what has been a method or way you've been putting the word out there for to get new sets of listeners?
How do I get new listeners? Oh, it's actually a simpler process than most podcasters want to recognize. In my case, for example, are you familiar with an app called Headliner?
Yes,
that takes podcasts. Okay, good. I just did 15 15 headliner videos, uploaded them to YouTube.
Wow.
Okay. I believe 5 for each of 3 stories, and I put them up 5 at a time. I believe in dominating a subject. So, for example, the keywords in this case, the one I just did, The Last Weapon by Robert Sheckley. Okay. I put 5 YouTube shorts up at the same time. They all have different keywords and different things in them to attract different people. But in a couple of days, or 3 or 4 days, when you go to Google and you type in The Last Weapon by Robert Sheckley, my goal is for and I've done this now with several stories, my goal is for the top 4 things you see are my videos.
Wow.
The top 4 things are my videos. Now, you and I both know that people are searching for video.
Yeah.
They don't want to read a bunch of stuff. They're looking for video. So I want to dominate. If you look up The Last Weapon by Robert Sheckley in a couple of days, hopefully I'll accomplish this. The top 4 things you'll see are my videos. And since people are searching for video, people will click on it. And if they like the way I sound and they like what they hear, then they will, in many cases, check out the podcast. And if they then like what they hear, and thankfully, like on Spotify, we've got almost 400 ratings on Spotify, and the average rating on Spotify is a 4.9 out of 5.
Yeah.
So that tells me people like what they hear, okay? And that's important. But because if you get sampling and they don't like what they're hearing on your podcast, they just go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But again, if they like what they hear on my podcast, they got 465 episodes to listen to, which is what makes sense that my podcast keeps growing in ratings. I am heard in more than 190 countries around the world. Now, I don't say that to impress anybody. I'm kind of in shock. That I am heard all these countries all over the world. And yesterday I hit number 2 in India, and I was like, okay, I've been number 2, I think, before in India, but I wanted to be number 1. That would have made 34 countries. Didn't get there. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't get there, wisdom. I was so close. But here's what I know will happen. I know eventually I'll get to number 1 in India.
Yeah.
Because more people will find it. Because of the Headliner app, which makes these little short YouTube videos and X and Instagram videos. I know that I'm probably going to keep all or most all of my India audience who live in India. And then I know that other people from India are going to find me. Massive country, huge population. I know some more will find me. They will start listening. And eventually, a week from now, a month from now, who knows, maybe a year from now, I'll be number 1. So the Headliner app is a way to help discovery of your podcast. Also, I just started this a few months ago, like 3 months ago. I had a website, but it wasn't a good website. And I have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours, not an exaggeration, on creating a web page for every episode of my podcast. On every episode, you get a little short story of what it is. You can listen to a sample right on my website. You can listen to the entire episode if you want, right on my website. You get a list of other stories by that author on my website, and I keyword optimize it. So fortunately, this is happening. A lot of my website pages are on the first page of Google.
Quick break. Before we continue, I'd love to invite you to join the My Podcast Story newsletter. Each week, I share highlights from our guest stories, behind-the-scenes podcasting tips, and resources to help you grow your own show. You can sign up at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. Now, let's get back to the episode.
So it's another way for people to find me. If you have a good podcast, and if you stick with it and stay in the game, and you keyword optimize, in other words, what are people searching for? What are they searching for? If you do those things and market a lot, okay, then people will find you. And if they like what they hear, they'll stick with it.
Oh. One of the keywords you said is dominate the niche.
Yeah, I want to dominate. Every time you look up somebody, a vintage science fiction author and a specific story, I want there are a few. I don't think there's more than 2 or 3, but there are 2 or 3 of them. Wisdom, like 8 out of the 10 positions on the first page of YouTube, or Google rather, are all my stuff. So I dominate on some, but what I really want to do is dominate on 465 episodes. That's what I really want.
Yeah. Wow. That is I feel like no matter what you're talking about, there's someone currently in the world who is actively searching for the content you make. And you just have to make it easier for them to find you.
Yeah. What you need to do is find what people are searching for and give it to them. You know, it really is that simple. And we make it complicated sometimes. Like I give you credit for what you are doing right now. I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine your podcast is consistently what you and I are doing right now. Am I right about that? Yeah. So here's what's powerful about that. When people find your podcast and they like what they see and or hear, they're going to come back, okay? When they come back, the question is, do they get what caused them to come back in the first place? In other words, are you consistent? Now, you and I both know there are podcasts out there that are 2 or 3 guys shooting the breeze, just talking about whatever. And they may have an episode that you get excited about. And let's say they're talking about real estate. And let's say I was interested in real estate. I do keyword research, and I look up real estate. I find the podcast and I listen to it. I like it. Okay. I come back. Let's say I subscribe. I come back a week later, and this time they're not talking about real estate. They're talking about, the local bar or the local sports team or whatever. Now, that causes people to fail because I'm out of there. I came for real estate, but you're not talking about real estate this week. So what I congratulate you on being consistent, doing what you're doing. That brings value to the people that listen to your podcast. And so they expect it from you. It's like somewhere on the internet, I don't know where it is or I'd fix it, but all I do are narrate these stories from 1963 or 64 that are in the public domain, which means the rights have expired. Yeah. All I do is those stories. Somewhere on the internet, somebody said that I do interviews. So every week I get 2 or 3 emails from people that say, here's my book, here's my friend's book, whatever, and they want me to do interviews.
Yeah.
And I don't do that. And I won't do it because when you go to the Lost Sci Fi Podcast, you know what you're going to get in every episode. That's really important. When people do find you and they stay with you for an episode or 2, don't disappoint them and give them something they're not looking for. Because that it's like going to a restaurant where they serve the best pizza you've ever eaten in your life, and then 2 weeks from now you go back and they don't serve pizza anymore. Yeah. Now they're serving gelato and ham sandwiches. I'm not going back.
Yeah, makes sense. Wow, this is a masterclass of audio fiction podcast.
Thank you.
We talked about growth, and you talked about search, right? The other part I want to look at is, does your podcast make money?
Yes. Hallelujah, it does.
Hallelujah.
Great question. No doubt about it, I created it with the hope that someday it would make money, okay? But wisdom, I did not know how to make money with my podcast. Did not know. Now, I'll share with you the truth about the beginning of it. No money made for almost 2 years. Almost 2 years. And then I was on a Facebook group with the hosting company that I was using to host my podcast. And somebody said that they were thinking of switching to another hosting company because they could make, they thought, about $1,000 a month.
Huh.
And I'm like, wow, yeah, it got my attention. So the funny thing is that on this Facebook group, people started like berating this guy, beating him up. Why would you switch? And da-da-da-da. You don't know that you... Anyway, are you familiar with listennotes.com?
Yeah.
Okay. So I went to listennotes.com, which for those people that are not aware of what it is, it's basically a ranking. There's somewhere between 4 and 5 million, approximately, podcasts in the world. Not all of them are active, but somewhere around 4 to 5 million. Listen Notes ranks them all. And so I looked up I knew what my numbers were because I was tracking it.
Yeah.
But I looked up this guy that said he thought he could make $1,000 a month. Now, Wisdom, he had more listeners than I had, but I thought, wow, if he could make $1,000, maybe I could make 600 or 700 or 800 a month. You know?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I wish I would have tracked the guy down and kept in touch with him, because I don't even remember what the name of the podcast was. I'd love to know how he's doing now, but I do know this. Do you mind if I mention the hosting company I switched to?
Please do.
Okay. It's called Acast. A-C-A-S-T.
I know them.
Okay. You're familiar with it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's where I switched. In October, not 2 years, I don't know. October, 2 years after I started. So almost 2 years ago or something like 2 years ago. So I switched immediately as soon as by the way, this is funny. I sent an email to their support people. And I said, here's the name of my podcast. Here's how many listeners I got every week, every episode, all this stuff. Can you give me an approximate idea?
Yeah.
And I knew what the answer was going to be. I knew the answer. Wisdom, before I asked it, but I thought, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
So I sent them an email saying, how much ballpark do you think I can make? And of course they said, well, we can't say that.
Yeah.
We don't know. So, okay. The day I switched, I mean the very day, a few hours after I switched, they have a place there for you to apply for monetization.
Yeah.
So I did it. Nothing happened. 2-3 weeks goes by. I do it again, because I never heard anything. I do it again, and I get accepted like within 24 hours. In the final, let's see, this is 25, so maybe this is 24, I don't remember, 23, 24, whatever it was. In the final 10 days of that month, I made money.
Wow.
So the next month, I get like $350 or $380.
From 0 to 350. That's a lot.
And I said, wow. Okay, because I had no idea. That was awesome.
Yeah.
The second month was a full month. Remember, that was only 10 days.
Yeah.
Second month was a full month with Acast. Now, remember, I don't sell the ads. I don't place the ads.
Yeah.
They're automatically placed at the beginning, the end, and the middle. I choose if I want an ad placement in the middle, which I do. I choose to, if it's less than 20 minutes, I don't put an ad group in the middle. But if it's more, this is my, who knows if that's right. That's what I do, Wisdom. And then they started about a year ago, I think. If you have a longer episode, 2 ads in the middle, 2 ad blocks in the middle, which I went, okay. So my episode that's going to be an hour 10 to an hour 20 will have a break at the beginning, commercials at the beginning, commercials at the end, and 2 breaks in the middle. So I'll make even more money on that longer episode. But the first full month, I made over $1,000.
We need to find that guy. We need to hunt that guy down. We need to find him.
I would love to know how much he's making. Yeah. Because I will tell you this, that again, hallelujah, thankfully, my income has grown since then.
Yeah.
I won't get into those numbers, but I told you the beginning numbers.
Yeah,
but
that
I'll
was
tell you
2 years
this.
ago. We can only imagine what it is now, so we know.
Yeah. Well, it didn't grow as much as I had hoped it would grow, but it's consistent growth as my podcast has grown. And again, I started without knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I started, like my first hosting for my podcast, and people laugh at me, and they should, about this. My first hosting for my podcast didn't have any statistics. Not only did it have no statistics, that's how much I knew about podcasting. So I'm not trying to be a know-it-all here, because I knew nothing when I started, which I guess is good news for those of you who are just getting started or trying to improve. But I knew nothing. I had no stats. And then when I moved to a different company a few months later, most of them have, I forget what they even call it now, but they have some way to redirect all your episodes. To the new hosting company. Mine didn't have that.
Ooh.
So I was starting all over from scratch a few months in. No big deal. You listen, you learn. That's what life's all about. you learn. So I got off to a difficult start, a slow start, but man, it has grown. And, this is one of the other things about that consistency that I talked about. When your listeners know what they're going to get every time they go to your podcast, if they like what they hear, they'll stick with you and they will tell other people. Spotify Wrapped came out a few weeks ago. I was, and this shocked me. I really didn't know this, but people listened longer to my podcast on Spotify than 99% of all other podcasts.
Wow.
That was shocking. They recommended my podcast more than 99% of all other podcasts on Spotify. And they commented on my podcast better than 99% of all the podcasts that are out there. So obviously my audience on Spotify, but I think everywhere, likes what they hear. They keep coming back. They tell other people. They comment. They rate. That's what you want, man. But I didn't know what I was doing when I got started and went almost 2 years without any monetization whatsoever. Think about that.
If you had stopped podcasting probably 1 year, 6 months, you wouldn't have been in that Facebook group talking about podcasting, and you wouldn't have seen that guy complain about moving to a different host. And you wouldn't have thought about, I should probably check out Acast. And wow.
Yep. Yeah. But it was all in a search. I am always searching for how can I get better?
Yeah.
How can I do what I'm doing better? How can I market my podcast better? So I'm always searching for that. And a funny story about that. There was a podcast support group on Facebook. And so I went on there because I had enjoyed some success and was making money. And I wanted to share that, what I had learned the hard way with other people. I wasn't there to promote my podcast or anything else. It's like being with you today. And again, I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you.
It's an opportunity for me, thank you, to give back to people.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for me wisdom, I hope I live to be 80, maybe beyond, but you don't know.
Yeah.
None of us know, I could get hit by a truck today, although probably not because I'm not leaving my condo. But anyway, the point is, as you get later in life, as I am, I want to do what I can to help other people.
To give back,
Yeah. So, and I thank you for that opportunity with you today. So I'm on this Facebook group, and this guy put out a post. He'd been doing his podcast for 2 years. He got only 10 to 12 downloads or listens every episode after 2 years.
Yeah.
So I took about 20 to 30 minutes of my life, and I value my time.
Yeah.
So I took 20 to 30 minutes of my life and typed out this lengthy, specific, telling him what I would recommend for him, but specific action items directly tailored to him. I typed out this long thing, and one of the things he did, he named the podcast after himself.
Yeah.
So it was the Joe Blow podcast.
Yeah.
Well, nobody is looking for the Joe Blow podcast, just as nobody would be looking for the Scott Miller podcast. Nobody would be looking for it, and if they found it, nobody would care. So when I named, at least I did this part right when I started, my podcast, because I branded the audiobooks I was selling as Lost Sci Fi. In other words, stuff most people had never heard before, had been lost to history. But my podcast full name is the Lost Sci Fi Podcast, Vintage Science Fiction Short Stories. When you find that, you know exactly what you're going to get. But if I titled it the Scott Miller Podcast, not only would people not be looking for it, they wouldn't know what the heck it was about. So I typed out this lengthy, took 20 to 30 minutes post, told him, it might be time for a rebrand, to rebrand what he's been doing. I said, look, you're not going to probably lose any of your listeners. The 10 to 12 downloads you have every week, they'll follow you if you rebrand, come up with a new name, tell them what the new name is. Here's the link for the new podcast, come up with a branded name. And I gave him 4 or 5 suggestions based on what he was talking about. And I said, you really have nothing to lose at this point. So anyway, I gave this lengthy explanation, and the administrator of the Facebook group rejected it because he said I was harsh. And I was not harsh. I was polite, but I was telling the guy what he needed to hear.
Yeah.
So I sent them a message back, and I said, what you think is harsh, I think is constructive criticism.
Yeah.
Furthermore, you know what's harsh? Not telling the guy after 2 years what he's doing wrong that could help him, because he's obviously there for a reason, Wisdom. He wanted somebody to help him. That's why he posted it. So anyway, I left the group. I thought, you know what? They're just wasting my time, and I'm not interested in wasting my time. And that's why, one of the reasons why I'm thankful for you today, that I get this opportunity to share with people the truth about how, and again, I want to make this clear. I knew nothing when I started.
Yeah.
I had no idea I would be heard in, I don't know if it's 191 or 100. It's almost every country in the world listens to my podcast. It's shocking. I had no idea we'd be number one in all those countries, but this I know. I have learned the hard way how to do what I'm doing for almost 4 years. And I want to, because again, man, you know, when you get to the end of life, you say, what's it all about? And all of that stuff. I want to help other people. So if what you and I are doing today can help other people, then that's awesome. And I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing the story and also making that time for us. I'm curious. I know you gave us a sense of how much the podcast is making, but what I want to look at now is how much you spend every month to produce the podcast.
Almost nothing.
How so?
It's a simple truth. Number one, this booth has been paid for 10 plus years. So the booth and that was the most expensive thing I have.
Yeah.
The microphone that I use in the booth, I bought like 12 years ago, and I take care of it. So it'll hopefully last a long time. Let's see, my cost is hosting with Acast, but when you host with the Headliner app, I don't know what it costs. It's $10 or $20 a month, something like that.
Yeah.
But when you host with Acast, you get Headliner for free. So what Acast charges me, I get back. Hallelujah indeed. What Acast charges me, I think I get back in Headliner.
Yeah.
And it's free, and it's integrated with Acast, so that makes it easier. So let's see, what else? I don't pay for Headliner. I don't pay for much. I know I've got, I do pay for, I can't remember the name of the app, but there's an app that I use that is a teleprompter application to put the words of the story on the screen. But mostly I use that for, I stick all the words in that app, and it tells me about how long the episode will be. So I pay for that. I don't pay, I bet I don't pay $50 a month to produce the podcast because I own everything. I use the same piece of music I started with 4 years ago. So I really, it's like next to nothing.
You know, listening to your story, I know we're talking about podcast. In my head, I'm like, how can I profit from public domain?
Well, you can, and other people do. And here's the other thing that I've learned in life. And I think at 66, closing in on 67 years, hopefully you learned a few lessons along the way. If somebody else has done it, you can do it.
Wow.
I can do it. So what? I had never even thought about doing public domain. I was narrating audiobooks for published authors, okay? And that's what I was doing. But the problem with that, and that was okay money, no, but the problem is I narrate an audiobook for an author. I finish the audiobook and they pay me. Let's say it was $1,500, and it took me a week or two to do it. The problem was immediately upon finishing, I was unemployed.
Yeah, that's it.
I got to find another author and another author. And then here's the other part, Wisdom, that I didn't like. I got to do it. If I want money, I got to do it forever. So like if I'm 75 and I don't feel like doing it, I have to do it if I want to eat.
Yeah.
So then I'm on Facebook. Somebody's talking about public domain. And I thought, that's interesting. So I started narrating vintage science fiction. Now, At the beginning, I kept doing what I was doing for other authors so there'd be money coming in.
Yeah.
The first month, I told my wife, I said, baby, this is going to be our future. You're going to love this. This is going to be good for us.
Yeah.
And after I'm dead, you're still going to have money coming in. This is pretty cool. The first month, Wisdom, and now there was no podcast. All it was short stories sold all over the world and in libraries all over the world. But they didn't sell a lot. And not a lot of people listen in libraries.
Yeah.
The first month I made $5. And so my wife, after I told her how excited I was about that, she's like, okay, how much did we make?
Right.
I said, baby, we made $5.
Yeah, but it's a long time.
Needless to say, she was not excited about $5. But the truth is, those audiobooks that I created 4 years ago, and I started selling the audiobooks in August 2021, but I made more than $5 because I'm still getting paid on those audiobooks I created 4+ years ago. So who knows? I've made hundreds, maybe I've made thousands off that first month's effort, but that hundreds or thousands didn't come in the first month. It's come over time, and it will continue to do that. So it's amazing. The public domain is a great opportunity. Now, I don't mind sharing that with people because the truth is that nobody else is going to come out and create. Now, I've done 500 stories in 465 podcast episodes. But then all of those stories are a part of some other bundle or box set. So if you go on chirpbooks.com and look under Scott Miller, I think I have somewhere around 750 audiobooks for sale.
Yeah.
And, they continue to be sold and will continue to be sold again long after I'm gone. So there is an opportunity there, but it's just like podcasting, man, it's a long game.
Yeah.
You don't make riches overnight. And that's why a lot of people quit. And why a lot of people fail is unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Be realistic. It's going to take time.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to do it, you can do it.
Yeah. I think podcasting is like planting palm trees, right? Any of those perennial crops, right? You have to plant a lot, and then you have to still wait. You have to care for it. And then eventually once it's set, you're having this plantation where you just you're eating money, and you're like, wow, how come it's not working that much?
Yeah, it's true. And, the truth is I could stop. Now, I wouldn't be making the money I want to make. I could stop recording today, and I'd still have money coming in. Yeah. But it's not as much as I want. Furthermore, I do realize after I'm gone that the podcast revenue will go down to a fraction, who knows how big that fraction is, of what it is today, because there's new episodes every week.
Yeah.
But I could stop, but I'm not going to stop. And that goes back to this is what I'm passionate about. I love going in that booth. I love telling these stories. Like I did a story in the last week called The Cold Equations. If you have any listeners that are interested in vintage science fiction, I highly recommend them to listen to this one episode first. It's called The Cold Equations by Tom Godwin, a very controversial science fiction short story 70 years ago. Very controversial. It took everything I had to narrate this short story. But man, what a story it is. I love doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so it keeps me alive. And like I hopefully don't look like a 66-year-old man. I know for a fact I don't act like a 66-year-old man because I'm excited about what I'm doing. And I think that means I will have, hopefully, maybe, if I'm right, a longer life and a better longer life because I am passionate about this. I'm passionate about being with you today and sharing this knowledge that I have learned the hard way. And I'm passionate about going in that booth. When we're done, I'll take a break. I'll get something to eat, give my voice a bit of a rest. And then I'm going in the booth to do The Tunnel Under the World, the story that I've already started on.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing this with us and just getting our head.
Thank you.
Different ideas, because your own case is sci-fi. There are people who love horror stories, there are people who love romance stories, there are people who love literary fiction, there are people who love what other kind of stories again? Dystopian stories and all that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they could really double down on that and really, crush it because people are searching for it. Nobody talks about it, not popular, but people searching for it and people will keep searching for it.
Yes, they will. There are a lot. Now, I will say this. I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but there are a lot of horror podcasts out there that have been around a long time. And it was a horror podcast that the guy said he did very well on the Facebook group that I saw that kind of motivated me to get started. But there are a lot of horror podcasts. People love that stuff. And it's funny because I get some of my listeners say, well, Scott, that story is more horror than science fiction. And I agree. Many of them are. But why don't you start a horror podcast? I said, here's the thing, man. It's taken everything I got in 4 years to do what I'm doing. To start another podcast, all I would do is dilute my audience and dilute my efforts by trying to do two things at the same time. It's just not my thing. So while I do some horror, it's funny you would mention that one because you're absolutely right. People love that stuff. Matter of fact, some of the most successful science fiction podcasts are horror podcasts. So
I think I
there's
see
so
a reason
many.
why that would be. Horror is like a form of true crime, but it's in fiction, and people love true crime podcasts.
Yep. True crime is another one, man. But I will tell you this, that one takes a lot of work for every episode.
Yeah.
That's all the research you got to do. That's a lot of work. So not trying to discourage anybody, but and those are also very popular. The funny thing is, the truth about podcasting is that there's so many different niches or niches, depending on how you pronounce the word, so many different niches out there that are not saturated. It's like I came along 4 years ago and I am now, if you're talking about vintage science fiction, I'm the #1 vintage science fiction podcast in the world. Nobody else even comes close now. When it's just now the #1 in 33 countries, that's just science fiction because they don't break out vintage sci-fi. If they broke out vintage sci-fi, I'd probably be #1 in like 100+ countries. But nonetheless, I'm happy where I am. Not satisfied, but happy because I want to continue to grow. But there are so many opportunities in podcasting. But one of the keys is you got to be passionate, man. You got to be passionate. You got to be committed. Because wisdom, let's be honest, there are days when you don't feel like doing what you and I are doing right now. There are days when you don't feel like doing it. Am I right?
Even today.
Even today, okay.
I was like,
I hope it wasn't me. I hope it wasn't me.
I haven't seen you, but I was like, I'm tired because right now it's like it's almost 11 p.m. I was like, I'm tired, and I was like, well, I made a commitment. Let me just show up, and I was like trying to connect everything, and here I am, and I'm like, wow, I'm glad I did show up because I was like, I look at a lot of wisdom I'm just gathering for podcasting. So that's how it is, right?
Yeah, it's true. It's honest. It's true. There are days when you don't feel like showing up, but the only way you'll be successful in podcasting is showing up on the days you don't feel like showing up. Because there are days when you're like, I'm ready to go, man. I'm excited. There's most of the time when I go in the booth to record a story, I'm fired up about it. Most of the time. Not all of the time, but most of the time. And there are sometimes, this is funny, and it doesn't happen very often, but there's sometimes I get in the booth and I'll record for half an hour, which is maybe 10 to 15 minutes when it's all edited, a finished story, and I'm just not feeling it. Like, I don't just narrate the stories or read the stories, I act the stories. I play the characters that are in the short story. And there are some times when I'm just not feeling it, and I get out of the booth, and I go to the living room, watch TV, do whatever, talk to my wife. And there's actually been 4 or 5 times in 500 stories, 465 episodes, that I've actually just erased it and said, forget it, it wasn't good, and I'm not going to release that. I'll record another one. So that happens sometimes. But you don't give up just because it's hard.
Yeah.
You don't give up just because you're not making as much money as you want to be making right now, because the only way you'll ever make the kind of money you want to make is if you stick with it.
Yeah.
It's the only way.
Wow. Thank you so much. This is one of those episodes that after editing, I would have to listen again and again, because right now I feel like being a host, I'm not getting so much value. I'll have to listen to it now as a listener so I can really, take much of the value from the episode. Just as a final piece, I know you've given so much advice to beginner podcasters. What would be the final piece of podcast wisdom you would want to leave with them?
Wow. The final. I'm trying to think of something we haven't already discussed. When you're doing it, do the absolute best you can every single time. And maybe there's some wisdom in when you're not feeling it and it's not good, that you erase it and start all over again, because your listeners can tell. Like what excites me, Wisdom, is when I get a review where somebody says, obviously, this guy really loves vintage science fiction, narrating these stories. When a listener can get that, in my case, only from the voice, when they can hear that somehow and know that that's true, that is huge. Because if you don't have that commitment and that sound in your voice, people can tell. If you're just mailing it in and, and you're not really doing it, you're doing it, but there's no effort in it, then they may listen to you once, but they won't listen to you twice, and they darn sure won't listen to you 465 episodes. So do the best you can do with every episode. There are times when I'm like, I need to get this podcast out. I haven't released one in a few days. And I try to rush the process. I don't, the intro and the outro and all that stuff. But then I say, no, stop. This episode's going to be around 10 years after you're dead, 20 years after you're dead. This thing's going to be around forever in some form or another. Take the time to do it right. And that way, when people go to your podcast, when they go to your podcast, they're going to hear it in your voice. And that makes a difference, makes a huge difference. So, for people that are listening to us now, if they never go to my podcast, I'm okay with that. I truly am. But if they like science fiction, I believe they will like the Lost Sci Fi Podcast. You can go to lostscifi.com or Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But it thrills me. I get excited. I get these emails from our listeners all the time. I get all this feedback from all these ratings, and there's more than 1,000 ratings and reviews in countries all over the world, and that's still nothing. By the way, Wisdom, that's nothing. There are people with millions. So I'm not bragging on myself, but it's a lot to me.
Yeah,
the guy who started and didn't know what he's doing, that's a lot to me, but it reinforces that you're doing something right. And that's exciting.
Wow. Thank you so much. Once again, what's the name of your podcast, and where can we listen and connect with you?
The Lost Sci Fi Podcast. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. You can go to lostscifi.com. You could just do a Google search for the Lost Sci Fi Podcast, and I'm all over it. It's kind of funny because in the beginning when I looked it up, there was nothing, when I first started the podcast. Now it's all over. The other thing, I have a newsletter, and that's, I think, another important thing to do, long-term connection with your audience. So I do a weekly newsletter. People really love it. And so if you go to lostscifi.com, upper right-hand corner is the word newsletter. You click on that. You can sign up for it. It's free. I give out free science fiction every week, 3 to 5 stories every week. People can listen for free without having to hear commercials or the introduction. If they like, and a lot of people do, like the story introduction, to hear the story behind the story, why this was created, who created it, that kind of stuff, then the podcast would be the best place to listen. But I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be with you today.
My pleasure. You're welcome.
And I hope that you'll check out the podcast, and if you like it, great. If you don't, it's okay. It's okay. This is the other thing you have to realize. It's a huge world, And people love podcasts. And if you do a good job and you market it and you stay in the game, people will find you will find your audience. They will find you. It will happen. But you know, does it take 4 years like it in my case? Does it take 10 years? I don't know. But you'll never know when you quit.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'll put all the links mentioned in the description so listeners can just click and go there to the site. Once again, thank you so much, Scott, because I have so many light bulbs turning on in my head right now. And after this episode, I'm going to start doing some check-ins. Yeah, thank you.
Good for you. Thank you. I truly appreciate. And now that it's midnight, where you are, that means I'm glad you told me the time. That means all the more to me that we did this, because that shows your dedication and your commitment. Even though you didn't, and I appreciate your honesty, didn't feel like doing it.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It happens.
Yes, it does.
It happens for. That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I hope you enjoyed listening to this journey as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps others discover the show. And don't forget to join the newsletter at mypodcaststory.com/join for more stories and podcasting insights. Until next time, keep telling your story because someone out there needs to hear it.